Okay, let's talk a little bit about how fast are these cars. Well, in a nutshell, they're not really fast. They're quick. So I did put the draggy on this. And I ran a 14, maybe a little bit lower than a 14.1 at 101 miles an hour in the quarter mile. But these aren't really drag cars. So you blow up the transaxle on this, you'll be crying. So I did like a normal launch to get that. This car is probably good if you were to like do a 4,000 RPM dump at the track. It probably would hit the high 13s. They do live very well at high RPM. Which means they are great on the highway. So they're good for high RPM cruising. They are entertaining. The power band hits higher, over 3,000 RPM. The higher it revs, the more it really starts building power. The engine, the flat six, is inherently balanced. So it's smooth all the way to its red line. You don't get any weird vibrations. You don't get any weird sounds. It wants to rev. It's designed to do it. The oiling system is good on this car, so you're not going to get oil starvation. So they could live at high RPMs. No problem. So street duty on these cars is a bit of a... Bikes go. So street duty on these cars is really not pushing the limits on the capabilities. These are designed for the track. So it's maybe a slower car, but more durable, designed for track use with the dry sump system. The steering on them are very, very tight. This one is an 89, so it seems like it's pretty buttoned down. Even with when I bought it, it had the original bushings. It was still pretty buttoned down. Maybe not for someone who does track days with the car, but for the street, I thought it was fine. It handles flat. I think by the end of the 3.2 Carrera run, maybe the torsion bars, I think they were bigger than the 911 SC, but then the sway bars are bigger on these cars also. So it handles pretty good. I don't really have any complaints with it. So it's a playful car. You do feel the rear bias, and it kind of makes the car have a unique feel. As you drive it, it does have that engine whine in the back. You know the engine is not mid-engine. You feel it back there somewhere. And you hear it. So my thoughts are, if you're thinking about one of these cars and you want ultimate speed and that's important for you, this may not be the car for you. If not really handy with cars, or you don't have a fat wallet. You'll need a fat wallet either way for parts, repairs, and all that. Whether you do it yourself, you'll need a fat wallet. If you pay someone else, it'll have to be fatter. They all need work at this point. They all have a skeleton in the closet. So if you don't have either of those, it probably isn't the car for you. I would say you really have to love the car, and you have to commit to the car. That being said, like, don't buy it and put a lot of repairs in it and then get discouraged and then sell it. Well, you've put money into the car already. Like, if you do the transaxle on these cars, it's good for 30 years. If you do the engine on these cars, it's good for 30 years. So just think of it as a long-term project. You know, if you're a flipper or whatever, you know, this video isn't for you. You're going to dry ice the car and then sell it to someone else regardless of the condition of the mechanicals. But I'm talking if you're an enthusiast here. The work you do to the car, think of it as long-term. So that's why I said you got to really love the car, because it's basically a long-term marriage. And you can kind of always think of it as a driving restoration. Now the problem is, what kind of Carrera 3.2 would you want, right? Look at what you have in the market. You've got low mileage examples that are all original, that demand top dollar. Those are collectibles, all the way to really high mileage cars and everything in between. Obviously, the higher the mileage, the more maintenance you're going to have at some point, unless someone did it all for you. So if you look at some of the other videos, you'll have an appreciation of what maybe a previous owner has done to the car. So in many respects, if you have one that's been refurbished, you should thank them. Listen. So yeah, I would say a lot of the cars that are completely redone, I'm talking suspension and everything on up, engine redone and all that, these cars may be undervalued. So don't turn your nose at that if you're going to drive it. If someone really had love for their car, you know, and redid it, they shored up maybe some of the shortcomings of these cars. I'm talking about it in my actual engine rebuild video. Things like I mentioned it before, the rod bolts and things like that, head studs. You know, it's nice to have a driving car where you don't have to worry about, you know, weak spots on the car. This car, this particular 89, it looks stock on the outside. I wanted to keep it looking like a Carrera 3.2, but I've done most of everything underneath. And I kept the interior mostly stock. Really the only thing I changed, I have the stock radio, but I have this Continental unit in here, just because the stock radio needs to be refurbished. You know, it has a scratchy volume pots and things like that. I want a Bluetooth, but I have it all, and I have the amp that goes underneath the seat. So my vision for this car was maybe a light mechanical hot rod, mechanically restored, daily drivable, couple little custom touches, but I wanted to keep the spirit of a Carrera 3.2 alive. That's the car I wanted when I was a kid. I didn't want a backdated long hood. No one wanted those in the 80s. Those were the old ones. So I like the impact bumper. Probably what I would love to do is if someone made a really nice front and rear carbon fiber bumper blade, that would be pretty cool. Preserve the looks of the car, drop the weight, as long as the carbon really retains some strength as far as crash protection, closer to the aluminum. Because don't forget, the bumpers on these cars are pretty heavy. Like it's pretty hefty. When you remove them and kind of move them around, you're like, okay, this will be a good place to reduce weight. But I'm not sure if I would do it at the expense of the actual structure of the car in case something happens. But I guess, you know, other people will argue the rear of this car is so low, the bumpers, any modern car would run over the bumper and really hit the hatch, the rear hatch. It is a true enthusiast car. But not for everybody. So compared to like domestic cars, I've touched on this before, you'll get really high quality parts. Most of the stuff is made in Europe. The parts supply chain on these cars are off the chain good. Whereas most of the American stuff, man, you got an older vet or something, my heart goes out to you. You hear, watch, you know, the Car Wizard, channels like that. Man, they get a lot of stuff out of the box, garbage. I mean, lifters that don't work, roller lifters that break the roller immediately, cams that aren't hardened. I mean, I've had clutch master cylinders not work out of the box. Slave cylinders where like the rod that pushes the clutch in bend like a boomerang. This is in my Corvette. Just a lot of poor quality parts. The Porsche, no, not so fast. They've maintained their manufacturing in Germany. Some you'll see in Poland. They've kind of kept a lot of it in Europe. So most of the suppliers are intact. They're still making parts for these cars. Driving a slow car fast on the street is in many ways more fun than driving a fast car slow. I've had lots of open class sport bikes where I never got to shift the damn thing around town because you would be hitting 100 miles an hour in second gear. So for spirited city driving, these cars are pretty good. I enjoy this a lot. They're small. There's a lot of lane for you to kind of pick your line in. I mean, I'm in Florida, so you see my roads are like a grid. I don't get the good mountain roads or have the access to it like you would if you were in LA. Someday. Although in my other video, I'm not against driving it somewhere to drive on good roads. I may do the auto train at some point, but I'm not sure if I want to leave it idling, waiting to get on the damn thing. There's not a bad mile, to me, driving this car. Every mile is fun. Whether I'm going straight or turning, you know what you're in, you know what you're driving. You can't forget it. You got the gauges in front of you, you got the silhouette of the windshield, you got the steering brakes, everything is reminding you all the time of what you're driving. So if that appeals to you, this is the one to get. These older 911 air-cooled cars. Alright, so I guess I'll wrap it up here. I have some videos coming out here on the engine teardown based on my pictures I took when I was doing the work. So look for that soon, and I'll catch you later.